Now, Ahmed just took us through the first part of his Star Wars story, but I'm glad his story didn't end with Jar Jar Binks. In part two, we get to hear the rest of his story with Star Wars, and we also get a sneak peek into some of his other projects. Let's check it out. The story continues with Star
Yeah,
Wars.
yeah,
Yeah, so you're
yeah,
doing some new things now.
yeah. Thankfully, I mean, it took 20 some odd years to get back in there, but season three of The Mandalorian, I played this character, Kelleran Beck, which is a character that I created, which was wonderful. I did a game show, a kids show, for Star Wars called Jedi Temple Challenge, which was a lot of fun because I love kids. I love kids. I
That's
love kids
awesome.
and I love old people. Those are like my two. I love old people. I love sitting and talking to old people. I love sitting and
Listen
talking
to
to kids.
stories, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh-huh.
there's no facade with kids and old people. You just get honest reactions and honest feelings, and it's just
That is so
wonderful to
true.
see. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's great to, it reminds you of, the honesty of human beings. So I really jumped at the chance of doing this kid show. I loved it. And, they were just like, carte blanche, create the character. I was like, that's what I do. So I created Kellerman Beck, and I love creating this Jedi. A Jedi who was a teacher, you know, and that was what the Jedi was passionate about, right? Kellerman Beck is passionate about teaching young people and bringing them up and showing them different ways and new ways of doing things, and it kind of reflects who I am as a teacher. Now that I'm a professor at USC and I'm a professor at Stanford. My whole thing behind being a professor is making what I teach accessible and making it easy and finding the language of each person in my class so I can help them learn their way, you know. And what I usually say to every student is, I'm not trying to turn you into me, I'm trying to turn you into you. You are going to be the best you that you can be. And if I can help unlock that, I will. So I really just kind of brought that to Kellen Beck and The Mandalorian, and I got to save little Grogu from Order 66, which was wonderful.
Yeah, for our listeners, I saw that episode when I heard that you were in it. I pulled it up, watched it, and then there's this amazing action scene of you're saving someone, and you're like really skillful with the lightsaber as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's a bunch
yeah,
of action shots in there,
yeah,
and it's funny because I caught myself cheering for you like it was a game. I was like,
yeah.
get him, duck! They're shooting at you! Oh my goodness, run, run!
Yeah.
All
Well,
those things there.
yeah, growing up a martial artist, I've always wanted to like get busy with lightsabers, and I wasn't able to do it as Jar Jar. It was like I had to be clumsy,
That's what the
and
character called for. Yeah,
yeah, and that's hard. It's harder to be clumsy than it is to be, precise. Um, but I was just like, okay, I finally get to do some weapons. I've been doing weapons for decades, so I finally get to wield some weapons and do some weapon work with these lightsabers. And you haven't really had a real martial artist as a Jedi yet, right? Um, Darth Maul, the Ray Park who played Darth Maul, he was a real martial artist. He was a Sith Lord. You know what I'm saying? Like Ewan and Liam trained to wield lightsabers, but they hadn't been training all their lives. And um, so I really wanted to bring kind of that martial arts ethos into the character of Kelleran as a
nice.
martial artist. So
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and there's plenty of things to look forward to in the future with that.
yeah, I hope
Yeah,
so. I hope so. I have a bunch of ideas, but there's a
yeah.
lot on the roster, so I gotta find a way. I gotta find my way in.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, so what else is going on with you? Other things that you have going on?
Yeah, so teaching, and then I'm still acting every once in a while. As you saw in The Mandalorian, I'm directing quite a lot. I'm directing a video game, and I'm directing a play that's on right now, and I'm writing and developing a lot of other work. But I'm really also passionate about my company, the Afro Rhythm Futures Group, and
Afro
using
Rhythms Futures Group. Okay.
yeah, and what we do is we use Afrofuturism to create optimistic futures, and we do it through gamifying. We also do it through teaching. When I teach the future at Stanford, at the design school, at the Hasselblad D School at Stanford, with my partner in the company, Dr. Lonnie Brooks and Jade Fabello, and now we created a game called Afro Rhythms from the Future, which we use to not only envision and create artifacts of the future and philosophies and ideas of the future, specifically optimistic futures, because we are awash with dystopian futures, right? And it's interesting how utopia, the idea of utopia, gives people pause, but the idea of dystopia, everybody's all in for. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where,
Funny how that works.
yeah, I think that's where we are now in this age, in this time. But we try to move away from either, right? And we just talk about protopias, which is really about progress, right? That's the pro in protopia, is progress. And as long as we're moving forward and expanding equality in egalitarianism, then we're moving in the right direction, right? It really is all about opening up and giving more rights, not just to people, but like I said, the dignity of the entire biome on the planet. And we're also now talking about the rights of artificial intelligence, which is incredibly important to us as we continue in our artificial intelligence journey, and as we use generative AI tools. We're constantly talking about the rights of AI and the ethics of AI, and where it's going to be in the next 50, 100, 1,000 years, right? So Afrofuturism really lends itself to that type of thinking and that type of creation, more so than what the traditional futurism of the 20s in Italy and in Europe did, right? Because we are looking at all futures, not just the futures of the futurist community from the Italian 1920s, but the futurist communities from 10,000 years ago in the ancient Egyptian civilizations, or the Kemetic civilizations, or the ancient civilizations of Yam and the Benin Empire and the Mali Empire, moving into today, and indigenous communities of the Haudenosaunee people and the Wendat people of my native New York, and also, as well as like northern New York and Canada, and the inspiration of them, who according to some anthropologists, created the Enlightenment, right? Whose ideas were the ideas that moved France to add égalité in their ideas of the three colors, right? The trois couleurs, as they call it, liberté, égalité, fraternité, right? Those were indigenous American ideas, as we're noting and learning from several anthropologists, right? So indigenous futures, African futures, queer futures, we're really thinking about how we bring all of those together to create protopias. And it's all about the storytelling, all about the storytelling. And I think that's what I bring to the Afro Rhythm Futures Group, is the ability to take the wonderful, scholarship of Dr. Lonnie Brooks and his brilliant, he's, for me, I think he's like the preeminent Afrofuturist thinker.
He is great,
I mean, I'm a little
Dr. Lonnie.
biased because, I love the guy and we work together, but every time he talks, I learn something. And then Jade Fabello, who is our millennial, who is just brings a wonderful youth and phenomenal just prodigious idea of storytelling from that generation, his point of view.
Yeah, powerful. Real quick for our listeners, with Afrofuturism, I remember the first time I came across the game and the experience. It was during the pandemic. It was a virtual conference,
Yeah,
and at this conference, they had different segments and classes, I guess, that you had. And there was this one line called Afrofuturism. I saw that, and I was like, "What the heck is that?"
yeah,
But I'm like, "I'm in." Click, and so I signed up for it. And so go to the session, and yeah, you begin the game, and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, wow, because a number of things just came to me as you were going through the game. Like number one, it's super fun. So listeners, and we'll share the information where you can learn more about that. But it was super fun. But the thing I began to realize, to your point a moment ago, is how dystopian or how hopeless or how this is just the way it's always going to be. And it's just one of those things that's like a subtle voice in your background. But the game helped me to realize it doesn't have to be that way. There's a
yeah,
number of different things that can be imagined or built or created into the future. And then here's how to do it in a fun way. I'm like, wow.
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, optimism is looked at nowadays as naivete, right? Like, if
Mm,
you are optimistic about the future, then you don't know what's really going on. And it's like, no, it actually takes a lot more courage to be optimistic than it is to be dystopian, right? And it takes a lot more creativity to be optimistic than it is to be pessimistic or dystopian. And so, if progress is at the forefront of your mind, and these the stories of these ancient civilizations who had it kind of figured out pretty good, when it was good, um, then you can use these ideas to create the future in which you want to build, right? So what we talk about constantly in the Afro Rhythm Futures Group is you are entitled to the right of your future, right? And no one gets to determine that for you. You actually have a say. So
mm.
we try
Of
to
agency.
empower, yeah, absolutely. You have an agency over your future. And we try to use our game, Algorithms from the Future, to empower you to realize that the agency of the future is actually a lot easier to attain than you think, right? So we use the game to kind of go, you just made a beautiful future. Now go do it. You're thinking about all of these things in a storytelling way, right? You're creating all of these things that don't exist. But by the time we finish the game, most people look at the things that they create and go, we could actually make this right now. Why don't we just build this protopia? And so we're actively doing that. We are building a protopia right now, and we're doing it one game at a time, right? And so now we're actually training cohorts to go out and play the game and get into more hands and get into more ideas and storytelling and being a griot is what we are. This is what the griots did for the griots, right? You had to master. You had to go to an apprentice. You were an apprentice to a griot, and they showed you how to tell the story, and then they sent you out there, right, to tell the story of the people, and that's what we're doing for the future.
Nice. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Now, one last thing I wanted to get into, you touched on it a moment ago with generative AI.
Yeah,
Because when I think about just the topic of AI, number of things come to mind. Like there's definitely a convenience, more efficient. There's a number of benefits to it. But then I also thought that AI, or at least I'll just say my limited experience with AI, is that the way I think the algorithms work is that it's a large language model. It can really, it has a good hold on all the information that's out there, and it can quote unquote think or be able to put things together based on whatever the query or the prompt is, which is great. But there's a number of things that's out there that has a lot of embedded dystopian elements to it. And so part of me thinks, well, it can it's not garbage in, garbage out, but almost in terms of it'll just share back that. And I wonder how we could improve AI. And you touched on it a little bit, but I want to get your thoughts a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I am very passionate and very pro generative AI. I know a lot of people in my business are afraid of it, and they do believe it's going to take people's jobs. And to be honest, it will. There are some jobs that generative AI are going to do. I don't think that is the problem of the generative AI. It's a problem that the people who hire people are going to have to deal with, right? Like, what are we doing, right? What are we doing for people? And I don't believe generative AI taking your job is a technology problem. I think it's a culture problem. So we have to talk about the culture of what's going to happen with generative AI, which is where I get excited because, we know that in human beings, the ability to imagine optimistic futures gives you the neuroplasticity in your brain to come to bring new ideas. And, imagining those type of futures is, griot. It's stories. That's what helps us imagine. That's what helps us bring these optimistic ideas of the future out. And what I'm so incredibly interested in, and I believe I can do actually, is teach the generative AI how to be a great storyteller, right? And what does neuroplasticity look like in generative AI, right? Rather than trying to build a neural network that is like a human being's neural network, what is a generative AI neural network and how do you create that storytelling neuroplasticity in generative AI? And, I always say like it takes a bard to build bards. And I've been a bard builder for a long time, and because I am in the emotional business, I train human beings to be in the emotional business, right? I like to call actors emotional athletes, right? We have to, wherever the script says, give you the emotion, we have to give you the emotion right there, right then, right? And a lot of times, depending on the medium, we don't have a lot of time to do it, right? So the training is how do you cry on page 10, right? And today we're doing page 10, right? And a lot of times when we're making movies, schedules get changed. So you could be preparing for the big emotional scene that's going to happen 20 days from now. And then you get your schedule and it's like, it's tomorrow. You have to do it tomorrow. You're like, well, I didn't. So the training is, okay, tomorrow, great, I can do it. Because we're athletic with our emotions, right? Because we are training ourselves to be vulnerable when the idea of being vulnerable is presented to you, right? So I think the biggest question that generative AI is not being asked is what we as performing artists ask ourselves all the time, like when do you do it, right? Like it as a basketball analogy, your coach is like, we're down 3. I need you to hit that 3 from the corner. I'm drawing up a play, right?
Yeah,
And you have to be emotionally prepared to hit that 3 in that corner and the game is on the line. Not
yeah,
everybody can do that, right?
that is true.
The
Mm-hmm.
emotions are so high, the expectations are so high, the game is on the line, right? So how do you know you can hit that 3? Repetition. You've been doing it
Yeah,
all day, every day in the gym.
second
You put up
nature.
1,000
Yeah,
shots, right? You don't even think. You go, give me the open shot in the corner. I'm going to
let's
hit
go.
that 3.
Let's
Boom.
do it. Yeah,
That's it,
yeah.
right? We're not training AI to do that.
Hmm.
And that's where I think generative AI will take an exponential lead when we train it to
Wow,
do that.
wow, wow. I hear you. That definitely relates, and I'm curious to hear what our listeners would say about that as well. But I definitely get it, and that I can see that being the next level for sure.
Yeah, and it's what I do every day with people. And when I work with technologist, and this is I'm in this very interesting place because Jar Jar was technology and human beings. It was this wonderful hybrid of both of these artists coming together to make this thing. And I think I'm in a very unique position that not a lot of people can be it, right? Which is like I have this experience of being able to speak these languages and bridge these gaps and see the pitfalls of it, right? See the challenges of it in a way that is incredibly intimate and emotional. And I believe that experience can move the next level and the next generation into understanding where we're going. And again, this is why I'm so passionate about the future. And I'm so passionate about optimistic futures, because I saw what I I almost didn't have, you know. And when I faced that, when I couldn't see a future, and then automatically it all rushed at me. I was so much more enthusiastic to build what was next. Um, so it's a unique perspective, that I don't think a lot of people have. That I've not only gained, but I've also cultivated and studied, and now I teach this. This is what I teach at both USC and Stanford, and the feedback has been impactful for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's powerful. One last question for you.
Mhm.
What's something that you want us to know about mental health based on your experiences and your life journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's very difficult about talking about mental health now is that a lot of times when we have these massive conversations about mental health, we lose the personal of it, and we believe that these big blanket, cures or these books or sometimes medications can be a panacea for a lot of people. And I think mental health is extremely personal, and it's extremely private, and it's terrifying. And it's very hard, and as I'll speak as a black man, it's very hard for a black man in this society to say, help.
Yes.
Just, I need help. I couldn't say it. And I didn't even know I didn't even, at the time, like cyberbullying didn't exist. At the time, internet bullying or all of that kind of idea was not a mental health, crisis. It wasn't professional. There was no social media, that you could point to say that I am in a mental health crisis, right? But it was this idea of I can't ask for help. Who am I to ask for help? There are people starving on the streets and I'm not, right? But it is very relative, mental health. It is very personal. And um, saying help to someone, regardless of how quiet you say it, is necessary. You have to, you know, pull your best friend aside and be like, help, I need help. And I don't know how to say this, but I do need help. And we all have to give space to how everyone approaches the way to help. How we all approach the way to healing, because it doesn't look the same in every person. It really doesn't. So we just have to be open to what that is personally.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You have the power of asking for help as well as the power of giving help. Yeah.
Yeah, very
Well,
important.
great. Yeah. Well, man, it was great to sit down and talk to you, to
Brother,
spend
it's
some time
always great.
together.
Always great, Larry.
Yeah. Always great to catch up. Have some real talk.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
good
Yes,
stuff.
sir.
Yeah, we'll be in touch and we'll keep the conversation going.
Appreciate you, my brother.
Yeah. Wow, what a great conversation with Ahmed. There were so many insights. The first thing that comes to mind is the power of storytelling and its influence on people, generations, and culture. We learn a lot through stories and we emotionally connect through stories. Then the next thing I remember from the conversation was just mental health in the Black community. Now, that is a very unique and challenging topic. The Black experience in America is very complex and complicated, to say the least. And topics like mental health, in my experience, seem to be a very abstract concept when I was growing up. And I'm still on my journey with this. And so I appreciate the different insights and reflections from Ahmed on his journey with that. And now we come to Star Wars. And what a journey has that been for Ahmed? Now, the big takeaway that I got from Ahmed's time as Jar Jar Binks and his mental health experience there is the power of words. Words from others can enter into your thoughts, and these words can influence your own words, the words you say to yourself and the words you say to others. These words eventually turn into actions, and actions form patterns and behaviors, and all of these things shape your character. I'm so glad that Ahmed's story didn't end with Jar Jar Binks. There were new words and thoughts that formed new ideas, which produced action in a new direction for Ahmed, with Keller and Beck in the Mandalorian series and the work that he's done at USC and Stanford. Now, the work he's doing with the Afro Rhythms Futures Group is super interesting. Now, they've figured out how to combine storytelling with future world building and make it fun. Anybody can play this game. You definitely have to check it out. And I really enjoyed Ahmed's take on generative AI, infusing the power of storytelling, which is a centuries old practice, with the modern day algorithms of generative AI. And the last thing I got from our conversation about mental health is the whole idea of help, asking for help and offering for help. These are words that can turn into action, and these actions can change someone's life. Wow, what a great conversation. I can't wait to hear what you think about it as well. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.